Welcome back to another impromptu discussion. This is going to be an impromptu review of the Nikon Z6. Just kind of blathering on what I think, and it looks a little different than the 1DC because I have an anamorphic adapter on the front and I'm trying to autofocus through that. So probably a bad idea. I don't think it'll actually work, but interesting nonetheless. So this is the Canon Z6. I got this back in December used, thinking I just wanted a still camera. I wasn't thinking about video features at all. I thought it might be interesting to use in video, but I didn't expect much out of it. And since then I've kind of been blown away every time that I use this. And here's some of the reasons. First, this is the Nikon Z Mount. And the Z Mount is Nikon's mirrorless mount, and this is an F to Z adapter right here. The Nikon F has historically been my favorite mount since the D90 because I had a bunch of older lenses and I would get everything in F mount because it was just easier to keep it that way. I had the D90, the 7D, the 5D, and then the GH cameras, and all of those I could use my Nikon lenses on because it's the furthest flange away, and it was something that I could just continually use and switch cameras back when I was doing lots of different camera reviews. So I thought the Z6 was interesting. The F to Z is almost perfect. The thing that it doesn't do is, if it isn't locked up here, yeah, this is weather sealed too, it doesn't have the screw drive in it for running old types of AF lenses. So I think it's the 1980s through maybe early 2000s, you had AFD lenses with the screw drive for autofocus. This will not run those, so they're all only manual focus. So this was also Nikon's first camera to offer RAW support, RAW video support out, and it has an N-Log profile. But the samples that I've seen of those haven't been great, and N-Log I think has a 1.1 crop. The interesting thing to me about this with video has been the actual just 8-bit 420 4K mode, and the image quality of that is excellent. Every time that I compare it against another camera, whatever magic Nikon's doing in here and downsampling that sensor down to 4K, it looks awesome. And if you think about it, if you downsample 6K to 4K, you're already going to have more color information. So you're just hammering that away to a 420 codec. Yes, you're going to get some loss, but it's not as much loss as if you didn't have that in the first place because you're gaining more color information downsampling anyway. Sort of like the NX1. The NX1 sort of shoots out of its range. That's kind of Samsung's brilliance for making it, and then their idiocy for leaving it. But with this camera, the other thing that was kind of an annoyance at first was the XQD cards. What I found out is that's not really an annoyance, it's actually awesome because once you get over that initial price point of what those cards cost, they're way faster. They're like mini little SSDs that go in, and they're way faster than any SD card that you'll ever see. And they're way more durable too. So I think that their reliability, definitely have a better opinion of those now. The screen only pops out and folds up like the Panasonic S1. And honestly, looking at the specs against the Panasonic S1, I think they have the actual same sensor. So there isn't that many sensor makers anymore. I think these both have the same exact full frame sensor, obviously with different results. Obviously Panasonic has way better software on their camera, but even today I would still need a Z6 just for older lens compatibility because there's no way to run Nikon lenses with electronic features on an L mount. And that is like what Nikon lacks in software, Panasonic lacks in everything else using that silly L mount. Because if they had gone with an E mount, an E mount has everything you could possibly imagine available for it. Not RF. RF is completely proprietary, and yes, the Komodo uses it, but it doesn't have that many options going to different lenses compared to E mount or even Z mount. And I think even Z mount now, being how close the flange is, I believe there's an autofocus E mount adapter. So I think the Z mount is actually the best mount today, and I hope Nikon actually licenses that out to other manufacturers, because Z mount on another camera, or if Nikon actually built a film camera or a cinema camera, it would be really interesting. The Z9 doesn't really fit that gap. If I had a Z9 and this, there wouldn't be really that much of a benefit to me, because yes, you would have an increased codec, but you wouldn't really have that. The quirks about this camera that are irritating me: shutter angle, no manual incremental adjustment of the shutter. From even Sony has 150.5. If you're in shutter angle, all my other cameras, all the Panasonic cameras do shutter angle with little tiny shutter adjustments on it. I need that for dealing with LED lights or different situations, anything electronic. You want to be able to minutely adjust that shutter. That's simply not available on this camera. And even with that, the image quality for the price is absolutely outstanding on this camera. I think it has just as good a low light as the A7S III. No, it doesn't shoot in the same codec, but it's better than the previous generation A7Ss, and it's probably better than, I can't think of any other full frame. Well, Canon's a hard spot because they have different products, but all in all, I've been really happy with this, and I really enjoy the dedicated video mode, and everything. It keeps your settings in video mode, and it's ready to go in video mode or stills mode, where it's not acting completely like video is a tacked on feature, even though it still is. The other nice thing about this is using ZMount filters. This is something else none of the L mount lenses, L mount cameras have. There are L mount adapters that have these, but you can get these little sensor filters, and this is an ND filter. I can dump that onto the sensor of the Z6 and get ND filtration. It's really easy to put on with a little suction cup. This little suction cup guy. And from there, you can have ND filters that are protecting you from dust as well. Now on something like the S1, you have to get an EF adapter and then put it on an EF adapter, otherwise it's on the front of the lens. And you put it on the front of the lens and you need a whole matte box or some other type of assembly to support that, rods, the whole works, and you lose that small capability of a camera like this. With this is a Tamron 70-210 with stabilization. The other nice thing about this, it does have IBIS, and the IBIS is pretty good. Even with the old manual lenses, holding them still or doing pans, pretty excellent IBIS compared to even Sony. Not as good as Panasonic, but it's pretty close. So kind of wrapping up with this, the battery in this camera will last quite a while, longer than you expect. You can get cheap third-party replacements. They will last you a good couple hours of having it in live view and taking photos and video. The rolling shutter is pretty good on this camera. It doesn't have the great options for slow motion. Using crop modes for slow motion means that you're increasing noise. So if you switch between one shot and another shot, and then you're doing that, yes, you can denoise, but I prefer to have all the modes in the full sensor size rather than, or even less resolution, but not actually cutting down and cropping the sensor size because of that noise issue, especially if you're shooting high ISO and then you switch between the two. It's not going to look great. And you can tell the difference, not on YouTube, but you can tell the difference in real life when you switch from a full frame to a crop mode. It's really not pleasant. Right now in 2022, I still think this is a very competitive camera. Like I said in my last huge mega review video, it doesn't really matter anymore which camera you get. It's more how that tool works for you, and this tool works pretty good. If you get it for the right price, or you're looking for a great stills camera and video camera, this definitely would work, as long as you don't need super slow motion modes. And definitely if you have Nikon lenses, older Nikon lenses, any kind of Nikon lenses, this is your ideal situation. This is an excellent camera. The results always surprise me, and I will keep showing comparisons with other cameras in the future because I don't think this is going away anytime soon.